comes from the Spirit with glorious light. Confident living cleanses my soul, giving the Spirit fullest control. Confident living rights every wrong.
I'm Mike Costello, and I'd like to talk to you for the next few minutes about prosperity and abundance. All of us are interested in physical prosperity and having the abundant supply of having our needs met. There are spiritual principles behind these concepts, and the spiritual principles behind abundance and prosperity can empower us and strengthen us to have the riches that we need, to have our physical needs met. We need to always have the awareness and the knowledge that all of the things of life take place in our mind before they are manifest in the physical plane of existence. We live in our minds and not in the world. Your abundance and prosperity, your health, your peace, all of the issues of your life come from your mind. It is mind that creates reality for us, and it is mind that creates the life experience that we have. We need to begin in talking about prosperity and abundance with the understanding that prosperity from a financial standpoint is something that you determine yourself as to your needs in life. Abundance is different, but is very similar. Abundance is a principle that says that there is abundant supply, and that the abundant supply, that is, all of the things that we need in the physical realm, are here. And there's also an abundant supply of all of the things that we need in the spiritual realm of life. The same is true of our prosperity. But so often we think of prosperity in physical terms. We tend to think of abundance in terms of perhaps food, but very seldom do we think of it as ideas. We need to begin this talk today in discussing prosperity and abundance, how you can prosper, how you can have the abundance that you need, not only in the physical sense, not only enough money to pay the bills, but also prosperity and abundance of consciousness, prosperity and abundance of your inner person to sustain you in times of need, prosperity and abundance of ideas that will bring into your life more and richer ways of living and of acting within your being. We need to begin this premise by understanding that our prosperity is dependent upon other people and upon the divine principles of life, which are abundance and prosperity. So the divine principles of life, other people, and ourselves create a triune that brings into our life experience the meeting of the needs that we have. If you have a bill that needs to be paid, you need to create the dollars and the cents that will pay that bill. If you have a problem in your life, you need to have the idea that will bring to you the guidance and the direction to have a solution to that problem. That prosperity and that abundance comes through the interaction of ourselves with others. Wherever you work for someone. Even if you work as a self-employed individual, you work based upon something that you do for other people, and they in turn pay you or you receive money. If you work in a conventional job, you have an agreement with your employer. That agreement is that you will devote a certain number of hours, provide a certain service to that company, and he in turn or she in turn will pay you for your time. There is an agreement between the two of you. If you go and work in a restaurant, the restaurant gets their money or their income by the people who come in to buy the food. So everything is dependent. You are dependent upon your employer is dependent upon the people who come to buy the goods or services. If you're self-employed, your services are sold to individuals who come to you. They in turn take your services and sell them or share them in some way, shape, or form. So there's a law here that's taking place that creates an interdependence. No one of us is able to have prosperity. No one of us is to have abundance as an individual without interaction with others on this earth plane. The third ingredient or being or presence to this is the divine mind or the presence of God. It is God that creates the abundance that we enjoy. It is the divine principle that calls into action the laws that bring forth our abundance, whether it be in physical abundance of dollars and cents or whether it be in spiritual or mental abundance or prosperity. So this interrelationship is very, very important. There's a parable in the Bible that we all know of the talents, and it speaks of the kingdom of heaven as being like a master who was going to go away on a journey. And he gave to each of his servants some money, some talents. He gave 5 to one, and he gave 3 to another, and he gave 1 to another. And he said, when I come back, I'll have an accounting. I'll have you give an accounting. The 2 who had received 5 and 2 talents had invested their money wisely and had done something with it. The one who had 1 talent was afraid, probably because he only had 1 talent, that he was only going to have that much money. And so rather than investing it, rather than putting it to work, he buried it, he kept it, and therefore he did not create anything out of that which he had, and therefore it was taken away from him, so he actually had less. We have a saying today, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That is true. And that is not to say something mean or cruel. It is not to say something that is hurtful, but it is a reality because our creative mind, the dynamic of the law of supply and demand, the laws of prosperity and abundance, create for those who have a mentality of wealth more and more, and for those who have a mentality of poverty less and less. And as we enter in to the thought process that we have about prosperity and abundance, we will either prosper or we will fail to prosper, and we will embrace a circumstance, a situation of lack and limit. And I want to emphasize the fact that I'm not talking necessarily and exclusively about financial prosperity. I'm talking about prosperity of ideas, of thought, of mind, and of worldly goods. The dynamic is true and real, and the law responds to the universe in which it operates. What happened with these people who invested their talents, the one who had 5 and who had 2? They went out and they were willing to commit themselves to investing or spending their money so that they could get something in return. One of the things that we name this action is the law of circulation. That is, as we send things out, things come back. As we send things out, things come back. And again, we're talking not only of money, although it works for money, we're also talking about ideas, we're talking about inner strength, we're talking about spiritual substance. We have to live in an environment of circulation where things go out, and as they go out, space is created so other things come in. When you have bills to pay, you have a need. You therefore do something to create the income that you need to pay those bills. When you pay those bills, you receive something for them. If you pay rent on your house, you pay that money to your landlord, who in turn pays the mortgage, who in turn pays the bank, who in turn reloans the money, which creates the circulation. As you have a bill that pays for the lights in your house, you write the bill, the lights are given to you, you have something for the money that you spent, and you send it back to the electric company. They in turn create more lights, and this law of circulation creates reality for the entire universe. In the Holy Land, there is the Dead Sea. It is a body of water that is stagnant, that smells, that's wretched, and in which there is no life. In the Dead Sea, there is no circulation. There is no inflow, there is no outflow. But in the Sea of Galilee, there is inflow and outflow. There is the inflow of clean, clear water. There is the outflow of water. And as there is that flow of circulation, there is a radiance of life, an abundance of life, a tremendous supply. And the reality is that you have the creative forces when you have the flow of inflow and outflow. And that reality brings abundance and prosperity. The process of circulation and the process of abundance and prosperity begin in our minds. We begin with the premise that there is abundant supply of everything that we need. There is enough food for everyone, there is enough money for everyone, there is enough housing for everyone, there are enough jobs for everyone, there is enough of everything. On the spiritual realm, there is enough love, there is enough protection, there is enough guidance. On the mental level, there is enough positive thought, there is enough creative thought, there is enough dynamic thought to sustain you and me and everyone in the universe. Abundance is a reality. The claiming of prosperity, the meeting of our needs, physical and spiritual, come through the process of mind. If you have a mentality of abundance, you know that there is abundant supply. You know that your needs will be met. And you know this with such confidence that you are able to circulate that which you have. On the mental realm, you are able to circulate your ideas with others. They in turn share with you. Their ideas come to you, your ideas go to them. On the level of love, love comes to you, love is sent out from you. Love comes to me, it is sent out to others around. And that law of circulation is a reality. When it comes to finances, the money comes into our bank accounts, and we in turn use it to go out and to purchase items and goods and services. We give it to good purposes. We donate it to charities. We pay our bills. And the process goes on with inflow and outflow, inflow and outflow. And the dynamic of mind tells us that this is a never-ending cycle, and that the never-ending cycle of abundance and prosperity is ours as long as we do not fail to short-circuit it. If we short-circuit that law, if we stop the circulation, if we begin to hoard too much, more than we need, if we begin not to share, if we begin to withdraw, something starts to happen. Lack and limit come into our lives. And again, I'm not talking only about the physical realm. It works in the physical realm. It works in the world. It works with money. It works with dollars and cents and property and stocks and investments. But it also works on the mental level and the spiritual level. If you fail to give love, you will not be loved. If you fail to give solutions and ideas, none will come to you. If you isolate yourself, you will be isolated. But if you choose to operate from a mentality of abundance and circulation, then dynamic possibilities are yours. You will be guided and directed in wonderful and magnificent ways. We all want to be prosperous. We all want to have a part of the abundance of God and God's great supply. The choice is ours, and the choice begins in our minds. We either choose to have a mentality of prosperity or we do not. And the process of mind determines all of this for us. It begins and ends in your life. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. It is your choice to decide whether you choose to be richer in ideas, richer in life, richer in wealth, or whether you will be poorer and poorer and poorer. The great promise is that at any point in time, when you change your way of thinking, when you direct your thoughts, when you embrace the all-important law of circulation, the key law of circulation, abundant supply will come into your life experience. Pick up the telephone and start calling people and talking to them in a positive, affirming way. Pick up your pen or pencil and write a letter a week, or 2 or 3 or 4, to someone who hasn't heard from you for a long time. Write positive letters. Share your ideas. Pick up your checkbook and write a check for something noble and good. Begin the process of circulation. And in that process of circulation, abundant supply will be yours. And the reality of this interdependence between you, other people, and God, this great triune, will create for you a prosperous life, an abundant life, and a magnificent environment. The choice is yours. By changing the way that you think, you can claim prosperity, you can claim abundance, and you can direct your life through circulation in a universal and magnificent way. We believe in prayer as a centering force, and we devote a portion of every program to a time of prayer and meditation. We invite you to join in this reflection with us. Eternal God, we give you great thanks for the laws of prosperity and abundance, for the laws of circulation. Guide and direct our hearts and our minds to accept the prosperity that is our divine right, and to share in the abundance that you have provided for all of your children so graciously. We claim these laws and these promises in the name of faith, in the name of hope, in the name of love. Amen.
Many people, when they hear the story about the talents, don't quite understand that. They don't understand that it was the law of circulation in effect there.
Yes, very importantly, the law of circulation. And the other wonderful message in that parable that Jesus gave us is that it doesn't matter how much we begin with. Some begin with 5, some begin with 3, some begin with 2. And even if we start with a little, it is the law of circulation that makes the dynamic true.
Yes. We give that we may get, that we may give again, but not with that idea in mind of getting so that we may, we need to give that we may get, that we may give again, not that we may get.
We give because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
You know, so often the people will, especially even in our movement, in the New Thought movement, will say that they operate within the laws of prosperity and abundance and circulation, and they do these things because they want to receive their abundant supply.
Yes.
And in reality, the abundant supply is natural.
Yes.
It doesn't, we don't have to do anything to justify it. All we have to do is open the circuit, and the circuit is circulation.
Yeah.
And as soon as we open that circuit, it comes back to us. It's a little bit like the old saying that people used to use, people were always waiting for their ship to come in,
Yes.
but they never send any ships out. Well, if you never send a ship out, you're never going to have a ship come in. And so you can't sit on the shore and moan and groan. But you can use the dynamic and the law of circulation, and because of that law, your needs will be met. And so we give not to receive, we give because giving is the thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. But if we don't give, then we don't get, then we can't give again.
That's,
There's so much more than meets the eye. Could you elaborate more on that?
well, if we take some of the things that we think as negative so often, and I don't want to belabor the fact of money, because so many people in New Thought use prosperity and abundance and those principles to acquire money. And certainly those principles operate on the same level. So you can accumulate money through these laws. But if you accumulate money using these laws and you don't accumulate a consciousness of prosperity and abundance, if you don't begin to be godly and centered in the presence of God, you simply end up being an enlightened person with money who's just as unhappy as the person without money. So we need to center ourselves first, and the object of what we're doing is not to accumulate money. But in the financial realm, so often we believe that we need to hoard money, and certainly there's a time to put money aside for retirement and for other things. But really the way to make money is not through hoarding it, but through investing it and through creating that outflow and that inflow. One thing that someone told me a long time ago was great advice, and it was actually a relative of mine who said, you'll never work, or you will only work for a living. If you want to have money in your life, you're going to have to get it some other way than working for it. And all he meant, he didn't mean you ought not have a job. He meant that if you had a job, your job is going to pay the rent or the mortgage and your car payment and your expenses, but it will never allow you to accumulate what you need. You're going to have to do that through some other source that's going to be your own initiative. Investing. But back to the simple fact of money. So often we are sad because we write our bills, and at the end of the month there's no money left. And we say, well, there's something wrong. But there's great thanksgiving that we should have in that celebration, because if we didn't have the money to pay the bills, we wouldn't have the place that we live. We wouldn't have the lights that we have. We need to be thankful and grateful that we have bills to pay. Give me more bills to pay, because if I have more bills to pay, then I'm going to have more money.
Yes, because there's enough. There's enough in the universe. And I agree with you that so many New Thought people teach prosperity and just prosperity without the spiritual aspect. And usually they might end up prosperous for a time, but then it becomes a hollow shell, and they end up not being prosperous all too often.
And their prosperity is meaningless.
Yes.
You know? And the same is true of people who do accumulate a large amount of money and believe in it there is security, because the hoarding of resources doesn't bring any great solace or comfort unless you're going to do something with it. And do something with it means if your standard of living, the standard of living that you choose is high, then you have every right to have that high standard of living and to have that need met. God doesn't expect everyone to live in abject poverty, nor does he expect those people who live very simply to live at a level of life that they don't choose to live.
Right.
We're all the same, whether we live in a small and modest setting or whether we live in a very grandiose and elaborate lifestyle. But the choices are ours.
Yeah.
The choices are ours.
And many people are just totally happy with very humble surroundings. And that's a wonderful thing. And we can make beauty, create beauty in our surroundings regardless of how expensive the surroundings, regardless of the grandiosity. And that's the important part, is the contentment and the beauty.
The contentment and the beauty and sharing this
Yes.
process, always sharing
Yes.
the process.
Yeah.
You know, another Bible story that we know so well from the Old Testament is the story of the Israelites going home from Egypt in their captivity, and the message was that they would be given manna. And of
Yeah.
course, we see that as food, but really there's a great lesson for prosperity and abundance there. And it says every night the manna would drop from heaven.
Yes.
They could go and they could harvest it, pick it up in the morning. They could eat it, and it would sustain them, but don't hoard it.
Hoard it.
Don't keep any for tomorrow. All you need is what you need for today. And if you hoard it, it's going to become rancid and rotten. And I think to a great extent with physical wealth, that's true. In our church we operate, we have no reserves. For 60 plus years, we've had no reserves.
Yeah.
At points in time, we've owned our building. At other times, we've leased our building. We have overhead. We have expenses, just like everyone else has. We have never had a dime of reserve. And our founder, Dr. Garlish, always said, you don't need a dime of reserve. All you need to do is pay the bills every month.
Yeah.
And if you live that way, what's wrong with that? And I think in our lives, that's a great way that we can live. I think where we do get into trouble from a financial standpoint, especially in this country, is that we live on false dollars. That is, we live on credit.
Yeah.
And credit does get us into great difficulty. And credit is not creating the law of prosperity and abundance, or nor the law of circulation. In reality, it's creating a false prosperity.
It's in a sense, it's living a lie because it's living that which we do not have. Back to your church, I think it's a wonderful thing that last Christmas you were able to give 28 baskets, well, huge boxes of food to the two needy families. That's a wonderful thing and a wonderful service. And then you, of course, give throughout the year, keep the needy fund going and supply the needs of many.
We do, and the church is modest, but our expenses are still thousands of dollars a month,
Yes.
and we've never had a problem. We've never had a problem. Now, I will admit that we get to the 30th of the month, and sometimes there is maybe a little bit of doubt, but then we never make an appeal. We never make an appeal, and never have. But that is belief in the fact that God is going to supply. God will supply my needs, and which don't come from the church. God will supply your needs. God will supply everyone's needs, because it is out of God's abundance that we have the privilege of having our needs met.
60 years is a good track record.
It is.
I'd like to address work. When people work and don't enjoy their work and then and complain about it, and don't do their best, then the best doesn't come back to them. But those people who work with enthusiasm and enjoy their work and speak highly of their employer and the company for which they work and take pride in it, then they progress without fail.
And that's the law of circulation.
Yeah.
If we are working in a job that we hate,
Yeah.
and if we hate it within ourselves, and that hate as a vibration goes and touches that which we do, the law of circulation is being circumvented, and there is a problem, a real problem.
Yes, and so the money is just money. It's not really giving them any satisfaction. Where if they just change their idea toward their employer, toward their work, then it would all balance out more in a positive way.
And if they're doing a kind of work that they don't like, to know that God in His infinite wisdom, in His abundance, will provide another job, another way. Now, that's not to say that they should just quit their job,
Yes.
but it is to say that they should immediately make plans to make a goal of finding a job that they feel called to or led to, and then make that change and know that they'll be provided for.
To do something different. And I remember many, many years ago hearing an older, successful gentleman say, don't ever speak negatively about your employer. And I think that's so important too.
Yeah, the negativity short circuits the circulation. The other thing that short circuits circulation so often is our giving.
Yes.
And I'm not making an appeal for giving to our church, but the giving of money and time and love and support, the giving to noble and reasonable purposes.
Yeah.
And I think if we begin to be givers, if we begin to write a check for $20 a month or $10 a month, if we begin to help someone who needs our help, if we begin to write that letter a week to someone that's going to offer some help and some joy or some happiness, some enthusiasm, that process of giving, we have to be givers. And the more we give, the more we get.
That's exactly true. And I can remember in my own life instances of helping those people who help themselves, but they're down on their luck temporarily. And it's such a joy to be able to help them stabilize their life on this temporary basis when they need help. And sometimes that can be more productive for us than anything.
Or volunteering time.
Yes.
Volunteering our time, or giving our support to an effort, or giving dollars, hard dollars, I think, to charitable purposes is something that we believe we don't have the money to do, but when we begin to do it, it begins to come back to us, and
Yeah.
that law, it's actually operative.
And the joy of life is just so much greater. The joy of giving reflects in our joy of life.
And remember, too, in Scripture, Jesus never said to give to the poor to eliminate poverty. In every case, he said, give your money away, give your talents away, give it away, not for the benefit of the poor, but for your own benefit.
Yes.
He was, and somehow we've come to believe that Jesus was saying, give to the poor so that we won't have any more poor. And certainly we do want to eliminate poverty, and that's something that he was concerned about too, but that wasn't the purpose of his teaching. His teaching was, you need to give for yourself.
Yes.
You need to give, and as you give, you create this law of abundance and supply.
A good example of that is when Mary Magdalene was anointing him with the oil from the alabaster box, and someone chided her, and he said, the poor will be with you always. And someone said to her, give that to the poor. And Jesus said, the poor will be with you always. I will be here a short time in this body.
Yes, and the poor are not only those who are poor in worldly goods, but also those who are poor in mind and spirit,
Right.
many of whom have great wealth, and we need to be cautious about that. When we talk about poverty, it's not always the visible poor.
Yes, that's how we need to look out to help people who are poor in spirit as well as those who are poor financially.
We need to give up our ideas of poverty, and we need to embrace prosperity and abundance. Reverend Freelander and I have been sharing with you these concepts, and we hope that they'll add to your ability to live a more confident life. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Confident living, banner of might, comes from the Spirit with glorious light. Confident living cleanses my soul, giving the Spirit fullest control. Confident living rights every wrong. Dynamic power helps me be strong. Confident living comforts my heart from such a blessing.